Super quick amendment to this whole episode this week. I recorded everything on Mac's photo booth, and this is my quick impromptu review on photo booth on Mac. You might be familiar with it. If you grew up in the early 2010s, late 2000s, as the reason why everybody went into the Mac store with all their little friends to take stupid pictures. 0 out of 10. It sucks. Gets rid of all your files. Don't ever do it. Don't ever use it. It's dumb and stupid. Lost my entire video, so just going to put up a little picture of myself, and that'll be... I'm not going to stop myself from posting onto YouTube. So, if you're wondering why it's just a picture, why you're not seeing my face, that is why. I'm talking as if I'm speaking into not a microphone, but a camera, and I like that. I'm going to continue doing that. And just wanted to throw that little note out in front of the actual episode. So, pardon me for how weird this is, but hope you enjoy what's to come. Thank you. Alright, we're here for another episode of Wild Bill's podcast. Still have not decided what to name it. Thinking about something like the Cubs and the rest of the circus, or Wild Bill Circus. So I've got all these animals that I'm talking about. The Cubs, the Bears, Bulls, the Hawks. Even though they're very much not the Birds, they're the Blackhawks. But still unnamed, still just Wild Bill's podcast. Transferring over to a video format for YouTube, since I know SoundCloud will eventually price me out, and I'm very much not trying to pay for whatever subscription service there is to be able to post as much as I want on there. So we're going to open up a little bit, and I'll be speaking into a camera like I feel like I've always been destined to do. So, took a series off from the Cubs. I was recovering from an illness. I think I was talking about it last time I was on. Had to go to urgent care. Was not pretty. Was not able to breathe. And that was not fun. So, glad to be feeling a lot better. I know you were all waiting to hear an update on that. So, we're covering two series that the Cubs went through. They split 2-2 with the Mets, and then won the series against our division rivals, the Milwaukee Brewers, at home. So let's start going over the Mets series. I was overall pretty disappointed with the outcome of it. I know we had a couple good wins, with Morel hitting that game-winning 2-run homer in the first game, and then that exciting finish in Game 3, which I know there's a lot of discussion on whether or not Miguel Amaya blocked the plate. It looked like the way around that is keeping most of your body over the center of the plate, and then just giving them that kind of like little lane to maybe slide in the hand, so you can't say that you're completely blocking the plate. And by the looks of it, first of all, great play by Nick Madrigal to relay that throw into home plate. That's good to see Nick Madrigal contributing in that way, at the very least. Contact king, Nick Madrigal. And very much an instance of Polar Bear, what's the Mets guy named? Pete Alonso picked his hand up from tagging the plate. I think if he would have kept his hand down, the game would have continued and he would have scored. He would have been seen as being safe, but since there was that picking up of the hand off the ground, you could definitely say that he wasn't in contact with the plate to be called out. So, controversial. At least some people think so. But I do think the right call was made. So, exciting finish for the Cubs to win a close one in Game 3. So, the other two games, Alzolay, man. That's something that just keeps sticking out. There's like 5 games this season that the Cubs should have won if it were not for an appearance by Albert Alzolay. Which is disappointing because he's somebody that, kind of showed up on fire last season. We see all the fist bumps, all the enthusiasm that he brings when he's on, and when he's off, it's kind of just what we've been seeing all 2024 so far. Yeah, it's just sad to see. And also during that the second game of the series, we saw the Mets were afforded an extra out in that inning. So that opened up to them getting that 2-run homer. Or was it 3-run homer? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Cubs lost. And, it was from another Alzolay appearance, which is unfortunate. An already weak bullpen, not really getting any sort of help from individual players. It's going to spell disaster. And we've seen that. I think the Cubs should be leading this division by at least 4 games. But all things considered, and I'll touch on that a little later on, we're in a pretty good spot. And then it's a super heartbreaking fashion to lose in extra innings in Game 4. Especially going up in the 11th inning and immediately getting sent back down. By letting them score 2 runs from Francisco Lindor. I don't think he was starting very much this series. I think he might be ailed by something. I don't know. It's been a weird week. It's been a weird week of me trying to get back on my feet after being sick, so had to skip that episode and couldn't really pay too much attention. I was more focused on my health. But what can you do? It's an off series for the Cubs. I think they are better than what they played like in this series. The offense was pretty stagnant throughout most of it. So that's something of mild concern. I think only really Christopher Morel showed up. Weird to see Patrick Wisdom starting at first. Not sure why Michael Busch was taken out of the lineup on those days. And at the very least, the Cubs didn't lose the series. So kind of a neutral outcome. Not super happy about it, but what can you do? At worst, neutral. That's kind of the theme of the season so far. At the very worst, the Cubs are at least 500. At the very best, they sweep teams. So, can't be super upset about it. Anyways, the weekend series was against the Milwaukee Brewers, where after faltering in the first game, they were able to come back and win the final 2. And I am very happy by the overall domination of the starting pitching, even throughout all that. We had Wesnecki go into the 7th inning during one of the games in New York. Taillon and Assad in the last 2 games of this series. It's fantastic. I'm just overall thrilled. Shota Imanaga on the short list of Rookie of the Year and possibly Cy Young. Honestly, I think every starting pitcher is under 2 in ERA so far, which is pretty surprising considering we weren't really sure what was going on with most of these pitchers. But the trend seems to be everybody improving except for Kyle Hendricks. So if he's the only outlier, I'm pretty happy with how things have been going so far. So that's something that I'm pretty happy about. Pretty happy about some of Morel's at-bats too. He's come up pretty clutch in some spots. Had a good piece of hitting yesterday, the Sunday game, to drive in that final run. You know, the home runs are nice to see too. He's a big vibe guy, so if he gets going, I think that'll feed into other players' ability to produce. So that's another good thing that I saw throughout that series. Let's see what else I got on my little list. Something that really concerned me was some of Dansby Swanson's defense. I think he flew a little too close to the sun to close out Game 2 of this Brewers series when there was 2 runners on Hector Neris to get that force out at second to finish the game. Kind of felt like he lollipopped it into Nico Horner, and you had to stretch to make sure that throw got in time before the sliding base runner. I'd kind of rather you just toss it in and not really mess around with it. Rather be safe than go insane for half a second, wondering if you actually got it in time. He's had a few errors too, some misplays. I don't think I even mentioned how he, what was it, the game against Boston? He tried to take that play away from Ian Happ, where I think he would have had a better chance of catching it and forcing a play at the plate for the eventual walk-off run. Yeah, Dansby, really messing around, really giving yourself a heat check when I don't think you really should be heat checking. These games matter. These plays do matter. So that's another thing that kind of stands out to me. So 1 series win. Overall in the week, we were 4-3. So still making progress on staying above 500, gaining a better winning percentage. We're at 600 throughout the season so far, tied in first place with Milwaukee. They have won 1 more and lost 1 more, I believe. Here we go. I got this all pulled up. they've won one less and lost one less. So their winning percentage-wise is a little better just because of the fewer games that they've played. But I think knowing that the Cubs haven't been at full strength since the very first game, since Justice Steele went down, they've got Cody Bellinger out. They've got not Shota, but Seiya Suzuki. He's been out for a little while. Both those guys are expected to come back into the lineup this week. Justin Steele's on the mound tonight against the San Diego Padres. I have no worries going forward. I think this is going to be a good series for the Cubs. Going to have sort of a redemption kind of feeling to it since they dropped the series early on in San Diego. We had that historic 8-run meltdown that I couldn't believe I was watching the night of the NCAA tournament. I don't like to think about that. That really upset me. And I'm sure that the players on the team don't forget about it either. They haven't forgotten about it. And they'll want to get him back for it. So I see them coming back with a vengeance tonight. Justin Steele has been chomping at the bit to get another good season out under him. He was probably top 5 Cy Young finalist last season up until the very last little bit where he kind of faltered a bit. So expecting him to make a strong start. I'm very happy about it. So Cubs are once again striding in the correct direction. Final note about the Cubs games. I did see Caleb Williams and several other Bears were at the game on Saturday. Got a very nice ovation, so good to see my other team doing some team bonding outside of just throwing. So that's good to see. Nice to see him in front of a crowd and being open to receiving that, along with the teammates, the prominent teammates that we saw him with, sitting next to Keenan Allen. So that was another part that was good to see. Keenan Allen getting out there. There's a lot of pieces for the Bears that are flying kind of under the radar. So it's an exciting time for both of my favorite teams. I don't think I mentioned there was some renderings for a potential new lakefront stadium, kind of further south from where Soldier Field is at. My feelings about that, I've kind of remained the same since I visited Soldier Field for the first time back in 2016 for a preseason game. The second you walk in, you realize that it is by far the worst stadium in the city. It was like a science experiment gone wrong, like a spaceship landed on old Soldier Field. Just doesn't work conceptually. Not very aesthetically pleasing to the eye. I think it would be much better off if the Bears were to move to the suburbs with all the space that they could develop, build up some businesses, make some jobs out there for people to take advantage of. They would have a lot more kind of leverage to get big events if you were given all that kind of opportunity to develop a spot for people to come to and to showcase whatever event it is. Be much more open space, easier to get in and out of, no matter what, no matter where you put it, it would be easier to get in and out of. Just keep in mind, you're right up on the lake. You only have 180 degrees to come into the area from. I think people forget about that. And there's a lot of other places that are kind of sitting on a body of water, like Cleveland sitting on a body of water. What else is? San Francisco Stadium. Like Pittsburgh stadiums are right on the river. But even then, that's just a river. You can cross a bridge from the other side. I feel like those places make a little more sense. Chicago's a bigger city, so I don't know. It just feels like it makes a lot more sense for them to move out to the suburbs, have a bigger site. And it would give people the opportunity to tailgate, which I think was a major spot where the Bears are lacking. It would contribute to a better environment than it already is. So that's my little tangent on the Bears during the offseason. That's talking football at the moment. Currently in the MLB, other things of note, the crosstown Chicago White Sox won yet another series against the lowly St. Louis Cardinals. It's great to see the implosion of that organization in real time. I love seeing on Twitter saying you got to be a sick man to enjoy the downfall of the St. Louis Cardinals, to which I respond, I'm a sick man if that's the case. The one thing that kind of stuck out about that series, they had that one game that I think it was in extra innings. There was a 3-hour delay where the Cardinals had the bases loaded, down a run against the White Sox with 2 outs, came back and they threw 5 pitches. The final 2 strikes being way out of the zone. Another case of the umpires making it all about themselves. They might have had dinner reservations that they couldn't get out of. They might have had to put a deposit on that restaurant. I don't know what it was. Unfair for that to happen. I agree, that sucks. Couldn't have happened to a better team. It's a shame. It really is. So that's me talking baseball for the week. Excited to see how this Padres series goes. I'm excited to see the Cubs. I love baseball. I really do. And it's nice to be on screen talking about this for once. I feel a little better. Let me know if there's any sort of feedback anybody wants to give me. If anybody wants to be a little co-host as well. It's nice to just let my feelings and my little stream of consciousness come out, but I could use a friend. It was a big overall weekend in the sports landscape too. There was 3 separate Game 7s, 2 in hockey, 1 in basketball. I guess we could start off with the basketball Game 7. It was the Cleveland Cavaliers overtaking the, at one point, insurmountable lead from the Orlando Magic. I think they were up by like 17, the Magic were, at some point. I was at work, just walking around, kind of, serving tables, because that's what I'm doing at the moment. And didn't pay attention for a little while. Finally came back to see that they cut it to, like, a 5-point game. And then eventually, like, you give up that kind of momentum, you're probably not gonna catch up on it if you're the Orlando Magic. I'm starting to pay a lot more attention to college basketball, so I recognize Paolo Banchero. Excuse me. From previous NCAA tournaments. He's been fitting in pretty well in the NBA. But overall, Donovan Mitchell played a great game. Led the Cavs to a come-from-behind victory. They're moving on to play, I believe, they're playing the Celtics. And that's tough. The Celtics are the major force in the East. But first time the Cleveland Cavaliers have won a playoff series since before LeBron James. So good for them. Happy for them. Talking hockey real quick. I was actually able to sit down and watch the entirety of Game 7 between the Boston Bruins and the... Oh my gosh, I can't even remember who the other team was. The Toronto Maple Leafs with an F. Leafs, not leaves. Leafs. Because they didn't care about grammar back in the early 1900s. It felt like both teams had a good amount of momentum going into separate times where they were both attacking. It was pretty evenly matched. I think either one of them could have won it, ultimately. I would not have been upset about seeing a Boston team eliminated. I think they have won so much over my lifetime already to where if they didn't win again for the rest of my life, I would not care even a little bit. It got really exciting in the second period where both teams scored. Was it the second or was it the third? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. They both scored within like a minute of each other. I think it was the third, actually. Or maybe, who cares? Who cares? And then crazy pass off the boards to give the Boston Bruins the setup for the game-winning goal, series-winning goal, clinching goal. These side walls now have LED advertisements on them, which I think is, pretty cool. A nice advancement, but knowing that they can be manipulated, I think we might need to start a little investigation. NHL walls rigged. Maybe they knew something that Toronto didn't know, which could have been unfair. And then our other Game 7, the Dallas Stars versus the Vegas Golden Knights. It seems like both of these teams were Stanley Cup hopefuls. So a first-round showdown is kind of a too good to be true for most hockey fans. The Dallas Stars had all the momentum going into the third. They scored within the first minute of the third of a 1-1 tie. tough, especially when the crowd gets into it. Tough to come back from that. So, good series. But Stars and the Vegas Knights, even though I didn't watch a single minute of it live, just saw the replay right now. What else do we have? Ooh, the Kentucky Derby. Kentucky Derby went down. One of the 2 times in the entire year where people actually care about horses and horse racing. Obviously, it's a hobby people really like to go to. We see all these famous people spending thousands of dollars at a time every time they go up to their little concession stands and buying refreshments. It's crazy how much money goes into that. But we had a crazy finish in the big race at the very end of the day. Mystic Dan won in what looked to be a very close finish between 3 horses, won by the length of a nose. Most exciting 2 minutes in sports for good reason. Got all the people sassed up all around. Everybody having a good time. I'd love to go at some point. I feel like I'd be pretty out of place in that environment, but yeah, it's like a staple of American culture. It's 150th this year. So I'll do some quick mental math just about right after the Civil War. Crazy. And a tradition I'm sure will continue for a very long time. Far beyond my days. Far beyond any of our days, probably. And it's an exciting thing that goes on. What else happened? We had Caitlin Clark take her preseason debut with the Indiana Fever. Just watched a few highlights of that. It's crazy how different it feels like she plays compared to the other women in her league. She's kind of got that. It's almost like if you were a 2K player in the actual league, just hitting that jab step back, quick release shot behind the arc, 10 feet behind the arc, and she's making those shots. I can understand how she's the most exciting player to come into women's basketball in the entirety of all history. Especially at this time where the 3 ball is all the rave in the NBA too. I think this will be big for expanding the game. So yeah, it's nice to see. She had a chance to hit the game-winning 3 at the very end of regulation for the preseason, which I think is always kind of silly to care about, how those games end up. They could have ran a better play. She was kind of fading away in the corner, and it hit off the side. Her shot did, the side of the backboard. Whatever. The girl from the other team hit a step-back 3 to put them up 3 as time was expiring. I think the Indiana Fever only had 3 seconds to respond. And so it's some good play. Some good passes I saw. Would recommend if you're interested in some casual watching of basketball. Any gambling, perhaps. I might have to get more into covering stuff like that. And the last thing that I was at least aware of going on this weekend was the big boxing match between Canelo and Jaime Munguia. It's the annual tradition of Canelo Alvarez fighting on the Cinco de Mayo weekend. I was about to say 4th of July. Isn't that crazy? Very much not the 4th of July, but Cinco de Mayo. Which, as we all know, is very much not a Mexican national holiday. It's more an American national holiday. People want to go out and buy beers, which is great. I'll never poo-poo somebody's desire to go out and have some drinks with their friends. And Canelo uses that to his advantage. Always sets up a fight during this time and gets the Mexican nationals all riled up. And rightfully so. I mean, we saw 2 good Mexican fighters going up against each other. Canelo, the sage, older, wiser boxer, more experienced, more hardened through all that experience. But I can't really say anything bad about Jaime Munguia. I gotta see how old this guy is. He's like a young man out of Tijuana, which every time I hear Tijuana, I feel obligated to say, that sucks. Because I don't know if anybody out there has ever been in TJ. It sucks. It's not a fun spot. So he's almost exactly a year older or younger than I am. So he'd be 27. Young man out of TJ. Very much a different style from Canelo. He was aggressive. He was getting after it. He was throwing all these flurry punches. At times, it almost looked like Canelo was taking it back. I don't think he was. I think he was just waiting to tire him out, which I don't think he really did. Canelo kind of just landed more efficient punches. And he did have that knockdown, which was ultimately what set him over the edge in the decision. Canelo did win more rounds. He was, the technician, kind of working behind his gloves, checking for the openings. Jaime Munguia, though, he's looking good. So it was a nice fight. It was an exciting fight. There's plenty of combos landed. I don't know anything about boxing. I don't know anything about boxing or basketball, so I'm kind of just talking off vibes for those. So if you're coming here looking for a good analysis over that, you're in the wrong place. But exciting to see two Mexican dudes duke it out. I know everybody in the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas was on the same page as well. I think everybody was just happy to see two Mexican guys kind of at the center of the boxing world for a night. And so that was nice to see. Ultimate decision went Canelo's way, and I agree. I think that was the right thing. And, yeah, overall win for Mexican culture that night, I suppose we could say. And that is my overall analysis of sports throughout this past weekend. What else do I got going on in my life? Quick video game talk. I'm playing Arkham Origins on the PS3. It's kind of just a watered-down version of Arkham City. Love Batman. Love all the lore behind it. Love seeing how allegedly this is the origins of where the Joker came from, where he started. I feel like this is the only purpose of this game. Kind of just it was very much the filler between City and Arkham Knight on the PS4. Handed off to a different developer, and it kind of shows. I'm enjoying playing it. I wouldn't turn anyone against it, but playing all the other three first, I was already told to kind of lower my expectations for this one, and I'm not super surprised by how this is all playing out. It's a nice game, though. I'm having fun playing it. I've been playing a lot of Mario Galaxy, too. Never played any of the Wii games growing up. That kind of missed over my age group. That was kind of like my younger siblings. They had a Wii, they would play it. I was already on the PS3 playing Call of Duty and stuff like that. That's a lot of fun. Mario games are something that I hold really, really tight to my chest. I remember playing that with my grandma, my mom's mom, who is no longer with us. So it's a good memory that I hold of that video game franchise. So that's what I got going on video game wise. Real quick, I've been reading a lot of books over the past couple of years, and I've been getting really into Catch-22, the classic novel by Joseph Heller. Super witty, a lot of funny humor going into it's overall a satire on military and kind of the way that their rationale is, thinking the chain of commands, he says this, so it must be true. And playing into kind of that trope of characters, it kind of dives into each individual character through the different ranks and how they think, how they feel, takes through all their little situations, what they got going on, how they make the war work in either their advantage or disadvantage. It's set in World War II in a bombing squadron. Allies, of course. And they're stationed out in Italy, so if you're thinking about picking up a book and getting into it, I'd say Catch-22 is pretty engaging, a pretty good one to crack into. So that's my book review of the week. Not done with it; it's still got another 150 pages to go, but I've been enjoying it. So, got anything to add to that? Go ahead and let me know. That's what I got for this week. So half hour. It's a pretty good amount for just talking into a mic by myself. Let me know if you guys have any questions. If you guys want to contribute in any way, shape, or form, I would appreciate it. And until next time, it's over.